This is the loudest Stanley number 45 I have ever used.
Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. I'm in his shop. This is going to be a fun one. This is Johnny Brook and Zach from ZH Fabrication and Johnny Brook from Crafted Workshop. And the three of us are on the Crafted podcast. And so we're all getting together in Johnny's shop to build a project in one day. So this has been a lot of fun. It is a waterfall, live edge, modern, dovetailed, hand forged, all those cool terms all in one project and built in one day. So this is a lot of fun. So on my channel today, we're actually going to be going through building the drawer, doing the dovetails, and actually making the slides, wooden slides, so that it can be pulled out either side. And we're going to have some fun with that. So let's jump into the project.
So here's the shop where we will be working. That's Johnny and Zach, and this is the corner where I will be working in. Not my normal space, but we're going to have a lot of fun here. I'm going to be working with some walnut. This is out of Johnny's stock, and it is some pretty cool stuff. A lot of little figure, a decent amount of sapwood, and if you've never worked with walnut, it is a fantastic wood for hand tools. Just works very smoothly, very easily, and fantastic for this. So I'm going to start by cutting these pieces to length for the front and back and sides. So the drawer will actually be about 2 inches thick, 2 inches deep, about 13 inches front to back, and 18 inches wide. You can cut it over on the bench hook and bring them all to the length that they need to be. Here you can kind of see the table is a bit wobbly, but that's okay. You got to work with what you got, and even if that's the only thing you have for a bench, then you can still make great furniture. First thing I want to do is start cutting the tails. So I put them up in the Moxon vise, and I put them together so that I can gang cut them both at the same time. I'm going to make them with half pins and half tails, top and bottom, so that they're half and half. They're just kind of a fun system. Using that storyboard to lay them all out the same, I can then put all the marks on top and cut down to the baseline that I put on earlier. I'm just eyeballing the angle I want. I'm not going for any particular angle or shape. I just want it to be the way I like them to be. I made a whole video on making dovetails a while ago, so if you want to see that, I'll leave a link to that down below. But it's a fairly straightforward process, and you don't really need to overcomplicate it. I'll then come through and start chopping out the tails, cutting it at the end, and then ripping in. Here you can see Zach and I were working through what we want to do. It was kind of fun to have both of us in the shop and seeing how our tastes and designs came together. But back to chopping out, I'm chopping down and then paring out the waste. But slowly working down until I remove those bits. And then for the half tail, you can come in and cut it out. Actually, this is the half pin, not the half tail, excuse me. Very straightforward, just like cutting down, but cutting from the end. Now let's transfer the marks over to the pin board. I can put the pin board into the Moxon vise, set the tail board on top of it, line it all up, and very carefully hold it down, making sure not to move it, not to wiggle it. And I can transfer those marks to the end of the pin board. Then I need to draw them down. I don't always do this, but in this case I wanted to, just to be a little bit more careful. You can use the reflection in the saw to make sure it's vertical, as here you can see, but just making those marks makes it a little bit easier to follow and make sure you get this cut nice and vertical. Wiggly table, lots of fun. But then I can come through and, just like before, take out the waste from the pin boards. Just chop down and pare out until it is gone. And I have a whole video on how to gang cut like this if you want to see that as well. It's a very easy way and fairly quick. Now here's where things go wrong. I forgot to bring my Stanley number 45, and I need to make a groove in this for the drawer bottom. So I'm using Johnny's Stanley number 45, and it's a very weird one. It's very loud and noisy and creates a lot of dust, and in all honesty, it's a little slower with all the setup time. But you got to work with what you got, and this is what I have. So yeah, let's make some grooves in this drawer frame so I can put a drawer bottom in. In all honesty, this is actually a very great way of doing it, and it works very well to put that groove in. Just a quarter by quarter by quarter groove, and voila. Speaking of the drawer bottom, let's cut this out of some 1/4-inch plywood that Johnny had lying around in his shop. I don't have a saw bench here and a vise to hold it in, so we just set it up on top, climb on top of it, and cut out the piece you got. Fairly straightforward. The glue up is a nice simple setup. As long as you've got those tails and pins fitting well, you can pound them down in and make sure that you have your drawer bottom fitting into that 1/4-inch groove. I made the drawer bottom a little bit smaller than the groove space, so it has some space to move around, and it works out fairly well. Clamping it in place, I don't like to use cawls on the ends of the tails. I just clamp it just off the side, and it works fairly well for this size of a drawer. Now let's make the drawer slides. As you can see, I'm here holding the drawer in place. They're dovetailed into the top, and then they have a groove into the drawer. So for the sliding dovetails, I put a fence on this 1/4-inch back from the edge, and I'm going to use a saw to cut down 1/4-inch deep. Actually, it's slightly less than that. I'm only going down the depth of what I want for the dovetail. And then I have this dovetail plane, and basically all it is a cutter with an angled head. You'll see a better picture of it here in a little bit. And I take this down to depth, and depth is just determined by until the cutter meets the corner of this piece of wood. And it gives you a really nice consistent tail all the way across. As you can see here, I put a tail on both sides and both ends of this board, or both edges of this board. Then I need to cut down these blocks to make them to shape. I left it large, making it easier to clamp it to the bench while putting in the dovetails. The Moxon vise is not the best clamp for this, or the best vise for this, but you got to work with what you have. In this case, it works. Now I can pull the drawer out of the glue up and trim it all up, making sure that I plane down all the edges, and then I'm putting a chamfer all the way around and all the outside edges just to clean it up. And very pleased with how this came together. Really nice and square and shaped well. But we need to continue on with the work. Now I need to put a 1/4 by 1/4 groove in this that actually will leave a 1/4-inch tongue, and that tongue will be what slides in the side of the drawer. And so I'm going back to the Stanley 45 and putting it out. Speaking of the drawer, I need to put that groove into the drawer for the slide to run in. This is just a 1/4 by 1/4 by 1/4 groove run into the top of the board, so I can do the exact same thing through this. You can do this with a Stanley 45 or a grooving plane or a Stanley 55, and voila. Now I don't always fill these holes from the groove, but in this case I decided to do that. I just cut a wedge with a chisel on the bench hook and fit it in there and kind of pounded it down just a little bit to make sure that it wiggles in place, and then I can cut it off with a flush cut saw. Then I add some super glue into it. It hardens the grain, and I can plane it off, and it locks it in place so I don't have to mess with it. And it's a really quick, simple task. Back to the sliding dovetails. I want to put these sliding dovetails into the top, or actually the bottom of the top. And in this case, I'm actually going to be using the dovetail plane that I was just using a little bit ago, and that has a specific angle that I cut into the dovetails. So I can use that to hold the saw as a fence and make sure that the saw cuts the exact same angle into the top. And this way I can very easily make sure that my dovetails match one to the other. They're the same angle and the same location. Being very careful to hold it against that, especially while getting started. You can cut it down to the depth and check it with the tail. Just cut out both sides and you're left with your stop cuts. And now all you have to do is remove the waste in between these two cuts. This is actually a lot easier than it looks. It takes about 2 minutes per side to cut it down, and then about another 2 to 5 minutes to remove the material in between. I'll just use a chisel with the bevel down and come back in and remove the majority of the waste. I'm just taking it down close to where I want to, but not all the way down. I'm leaving it with a little bit of material at the bottom of the groove. And to get that material out with the bottom of the groove, I'm going to be using a router plane to cut that in. And the router plane will get a nice, flat, smooth bottom all the way across. And so I'm slowly going back and forth between the chisel and router plane until I get that groove to run all the way across. I want to be careful when I go to the far side not to blow out, and so I'll use the router plane to come back in. And then you can see how that just pounds into place and gives it a really nice tight fit. If you take your time, this can actually be a really clean, simple system. Then with the excess sticking off the end, I can just use a flush cut saw and clean it off. And that's about it for my portion of the project. If you want to see the rest, I have links to Zach and Johnny's videos. But here you can see how the drawer actually works in the finished project. And I'm really, really happy with how this came out. And beautiful, beautiful table.
So there you go. This was a blast. I've been having a ton of fun here with these two. And you've seen how I made the drawer here, but this is actually going to be a 3-part series. I'm making the drawer. Johnny is making the slab and waterfall. Zach is making the leg as well as hand forging the handles, and we're having all sorts of fun together. So really go check out their channels to see the other half of this build. You can click on Zach's face here or Johnny's face once those pop up. But also, if you haven't seen our podcast, definitely go look at that. It is a lot of fun, and the three of us really just like hanging out. On top of all that, we're actually going to be selling this on eBay and going to be doing giving a large chunk of it away to charity. So if you want to see information on that, or if you would like to be a bidder on it, you can see that in the description below. Other than that, that's about it for today. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit like and go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Also, if you want to check out Zach or Johnny's video, you can click right there. Also, I want to say an incredible thank you to the patrons on Patreon. You guys are the reason this channel keeps happening. If you'd like to find out more about that, you can click the link right down here. And until next time, have a wonderful day.